universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Yeah.
However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be, on his first entering a neighbourhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he's considered as the rightful property of some one or other of the daughters. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Mr. Bennet replied he had not. "But it is," returned she, "for Mrs. Long has just been there, and she's told me all about it." Mr. Bennet made no answer. "Do you not want to know who has taken it?" cried his wife impatiently. "You want to tell me? I have no objection to hearing it." This was invitation enough. "Why, my dear, you must know, Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately. He is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week." "What's his name?" "Bingley." "Is he married or single?" "Single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." "How so? How can it affect them?" "My dear Mr. Bennet," replied his wife, "how can you be so tiresome? You must know I'm thinking of his marrying one of them." "Is that his design in settling here?" "Design? Nonsense, how can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes." The second reading is one of my absolute favourites. It's the beginning of chapter 16. I tried to find something that would be interesting to read, but it also didn't give away the plot, because if you haven't read Pride and Prejudice, I envy you, because I wish I were reading it for the first time. Instead of receiving any such letter of excuse from his friend, as Elizabeth half expected Mr. Bingley to do, he was able to bring Darcy with him to Longbourn before many days had passed, after Lady Catherine's visit. The gentleman arrived early, and, before Mrs. Bennet had time to tell him of their having seen his aunt, of which her daughter was in momentary dread, Bingley, who wanted to be alone with Jane, proposed their all walking out. It was agreed to. Mrs. Bennet was not in the habit of walking. Mary could never spare time, but the remaining 5 set off together. Bingley and Jane, however, soon allowed the others to outstrip them. They lagged behind, while Elizabeth, Kitty, and Darcy were to entertain each other. Very little was said by either. Kitty was too much afraid of him to talk. Elizabeth was secretly forming a desperate resolution, and perhaps he might be doing the same. They walked towards the Lucases because Kitty wished to call upon Maria, and as Elizabeth saw no occasion for making it a general concern, when Kitty left them, she went boldly on with him alone. Now was the moment for her resolution to be executed, and while her courage was high, she immediately said, "Mr. Darcy, I am a very selfish creature, and for the sake of giving relief to my own feelings, care not how much I say by wounding yours. I can no longer help thanking you for your unexampled kindness to my poor sister. Ever since I've known it, I've been most anxious to acknowledge to you how gratefully I feel it. Were it known to the rest of my family, I should not have merely my own gratitude to express." "I am sorry, exceedingly sorry," replied Darcy, in a tone of surprise and emotion, "that you have ever been informed of what may, in a mistaken light, have given you uneasiness. I did not think Mrs. Gardiner was so little to be trusted." Thank you.
Paper, hot news, buy my paper here. 1786, good news, King George III reviews 10,000 troops on Wanstead Flats. 1788, bad news, in 1788, King George III goes mad. 1789, French Revolution begins, the Bastille is stormed. Bad news, King Louis XVI is guillotined. Good news, the Reign of Terror. So French royal exiles come to live in Wanstead House.
Stick.
Now, let me tell you about my at-home. My London cook is travelling down, and of course he was trained on the continent.
And pray, what dainty morsels will be put forward?
Will there be rout cakes? I believe Mrs. James at Aldersbrook has served them last month.
Well, indeed. And ratafia biscuits, also a plum cake, the recipe for which has been obtained from the Duchess of Salisbury's own cook.
Indeed. Is that the cook who recently found herself before the magistrate for adulterating tea leaves?
Oh, my goodness.
Should you require my assistance, my dear, please don't hesitate to call upon me. My cook would be only too pleased to advise.
Well, I'm sure all will be well. We will have sweetmeats and jellies, ices, tarts, oh, and fruits too.
Well, my digestion is somewhat delicate. I will just take a little tea and perhaps a small ratafia biscuit, if they're quite crisp.
Well, I must say, I look forward to it all enormously.
Well, I must bid you farewell until next Thursday. I do hope my health will permit me to attend. Goodbye, Mrs. Flindle. Or will you walk with me, Mrs. Withnall?
Goodbye, Mrs. Flindle. I look forward to the at-home.
Goodbye, ladies. Until next Thursday.
Paper, hot news, buy my paper here. 1793, Britain goes to war with France. 1799, bad news, trade unions abolished. Good news, Jane writes Northanger Abbey. 1801, Act of Union unites England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland. Good news or bad news? 1805, good news, Nelson wins mastery of the sea at the Battle of Trafalgar. Bad news, Napoleon is still in charge in Europe.
Twist.
In 1811, William Pole Wellesley was lying in bed, contemplating an ever-growing mountain of debts and difficulties, and desperately wondering what he could do to extricate himself from them. A sudden thought struck him. His mother was on terms of great intimacy with the widowed Lady Catherine Tylney Long, whose elder daughter was pretty, intelligent, and most relevant, extremely rich. He wrote to his mamma and conjured her to do all in her power of putting him in Miss Tylney Long's company. The young lady was already assailed by a host of suitors of all ranks and pretensions. The Prince Regent's brother, the Duke of Clarence, was one, but Lord Kilworth, eldest son of Lord Mountcashel, was supposed to be the principal favourite. It said that Lord Kilworth, Pole Wellesley and some other gentlemen were by chance dining together when the subject of Lord Kilworth's probable marriage with Miss Tylney Long was introduced. Kilworth was urged to be kind to his less fortunate friends so soon as he became master of her princely possessions. Lord Kilworth was not over-liberal in his promises, and Pole Wellesley told him plainly that he would supplant him. A considerable wager was the result, and Pole Wellesley took the field accordingly. His first measure was to tender his suit. His next was to openly declare that any man who dared presume to oppose his pretensions must contest them in the field. It seems that there were words between Wellesley and Lord Kilworth at an assembly at Lady Howardham's on August the 6th, 1811, and 3 days later a meeting took place on Wimbledon Common. For those present who are not English gentlemen, I will explain what this involves. By tradition, a duel takes place after a gentleman has taken offence at something which has been said to or about him. The injured party then demands satisfaction from the offender, who is considered to be dishonoured if he fails to accept the challenge. Each party names a second. Between them, these make sure the rules are followed and try to achieve an honourable reconciliation. If that proves impossible, the seconds determine a suitable field of honour and on the appointed day check that the weapons were equal and that the duel is fair. In the event of pistol duels, each party fires one shot. If neither man is hit and the challenger states that he's satisfied, the duel is declared over. Otherwise, there's a second round, though rarely more. Occasionally, duels have been prevented by the difficulty of arranging the terms of engagement. In one instance, a party had determined never to fight in the morning and the other never to fight in the afternoon. At the meeting between Kilworth and Pole Wellesley, the seconds intervened and everything was amicably adjusted. On the 14th, however, a letter appeared in the Morning Post asserting that Wellesley had apologised, and this led to a second meeting on the next day at Hounslow Heath, where, after an interchange of shots, the seconds again intervened and the matter was finally arranged. Lord Byron referred to this incident in the waltz. Hail, spirit-stirring waltz, beneath whose banners a modern hero fought for modish manners. On Hounslow Heath to rival Wellesley's fame, cocked, fired, and missed his man, but gained his aim. The duel between Lord Kilworth and Pole Wellesley, and the tireless perseverance with which the latter besieged Miss Tylney Long, and absolutely shut her out from all other suitors, became famous. His success was the consequence. He'd already proposed 6 times and been refused. Following the duel, she wavered. He proposed a 7th time and was accepted. The rest is history.
Another game, gentlemen.
Another game.
Certainly. That card came from your sleeve. I look this time, you can't get away with it.
Are you calling me a cheat?
I am, sir.
I demand satisfaction.
I accept your demand. I challenge you.
Challenge me?
Certainly.
Get yourself a second, sir.
I appoint my trusted friend, the Right Honourable Russell Kenny, to be my second.
I'd be pleased to, sir. Graham, Lord Farquhar. Please be my second, sir.
I'll gladly accept. Gentlemen, take 10 paces forward.
1, 2.
Gentlemen, stop! I need a handkerchief. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, return to the middle. We will do that again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Gentlemen, when I drop the handkerchief, you will fire.
Sir, are you wounded?
It's been big.
Paper, hot news, buy my paper here. 1811, bad news, the Luddites break up machinery. Good news, George III goes mad again. Don't ask me why it's good. The Regency begins, the Brighton Pavilion gets built and there are lots of lovely outfits to wear. Jane Austen publishes Sense and Sensibility. 1813, very good news, Catherine Tylney Long's favourite book, Algidy, is published. Pride and Prejudice, hooray. 1814, good news, Wicked William invites famous designer, Humphrey Repton to improve the grounds of Wanstead Park. Bad news, William is rapidly getting through his wife's fortune. Good news, Jane Austen writes Mansfield Park.
Right, the people who asked the quiz, I have to say, I'm appalled by the lack of knowledge of Jane Austen. Sorry, everybody. The winner of the quiz is Leslie, Richard and May. Two bound copies of the novels of Jane Austen.
Jolly.
And as I would have expected, no less, June is the runner-up. Sadly, it's not Twining's team. Now, you all want to know who won the costume competition, don't you? We don't want any squabbling or any duels over this. So I have to announce that the winner of the men's costume competition is Daryl. Twining.
I did hire it. It was a hired costume.
Runner-up of the men's costume competition. Let's see if I can remember who it is now. I've forgotten who it is now. Who was it? Oh yes, it's Richard, of course.
Yes.
We thought that Rita. Where's Rita?
Where's Rita?
Very good. Has made her own costume in period. So there we go.
Thank you very much.
The runner-up is Sophie. Everyone for making a wonderful effort. You all look fantastic. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think we're just in time for the dance.
1816. Good news. Jane Austen writes Persuasion. Bad news. She becomes ill. 1817. Very bad news. Jane Austen dies at the age of 42.
Thank you.